Yoga and meditation has helped me personally so much. So I'm intrigued by this study that is trying to quantify it. Because that's what science always boils down to. Can you quantify it? As I said, yoga has helped me so much, though I can't quantify it. Some of you might ask, why bother? If it helps you, just do it. The answer, of course, is to unlock its potential. Just yesterday, a friend suggested that any advantages people get from yoga might just be a placebo effect. I honestly wonder how you would test for a placebo effect of yoga, because pretending to do yoga, you would still kind of do yoga. Anyway, the point is, with empiric data, the health system can recognize its potential. And finally, the people themselves, because ultimately, yoga is for free. Anyone can do it. Another thing Patel et al. Deduced from their findings is that yoga practice may be optimized, or the right practice chosen for the circumstance. But first, welcome to the club. My name is Hannah. I'm a molecular biologist, but today we're taking on the beast that is the immune system. I have a friend who studies the immune system as part of her doctorate, and even she says it's overwhelming. So for my sake, as much as yours, I'll keep it to the point. But you see what I mean from a first glance at the abstract. So many abbreviations. So they say, chronic inflammation can remain many years after the completion of cancer treatment and is associated with cancer reoccurrence. The purpose of this study was to examine how a 16-week therapeutic yoga program modulates the cytokine profile in heterogeneous cancer survivors. Chronic inflammation is a risk factor for cancer, or if you've already had cancer, reoccurrence of cancer. That's why the objective in cancer survivors is to reduce inflammation. Chronic inflammation can be caused by stress, and dealing with a cancer diagnosis sure is stressful, but also one purpose of the immune system is to kill off those cells in our bodies that have gone rogue, like tumor cells that are multiplying uncontrollably. Only, of course, a successful tumor can avoid the immune cells, but the immune system might be very well aware of it. And also, the immune system would respond to the cancer treatment the survivor had. When someone had surgery, for example, the immune system is involved in the wound healing. So great. They want to test if they can reduce the inflammation with yoga practice. And as you know, it's known that yoga is good. But how to quantify that? Because they hypothesize that yoga influences the immune system. They quantify markers of the immune system before and after the 16 weeks of yoga, and these markers are cytokines. Cytokines are molecules that communicate between different cell types. But compared to hormones that basically do the same thing, communicating between different tissues, cytokines are not stored, but only get produced and released when the signal comes in. So then they list the different cytokines they're tested for. Interferon gamma activates macrophages, which are part of the adaptive immune system. They kind of eat and digest pathogens. Interleukin-1 beta is a cytokine released by monocytes that are also part of the adaptive immune system. They live in the bloodstream and they are the forerunners of the macrophages. In the introduction, they write, multiple factors play a role in cancer recurrence, including obesity and systemic inflammation. Elevated body mass index is associated with increased systemic concentration of inflammatory and pro-tumorigenic cytokines. Further, the elevation of pro-inflammatory cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor alpha, interferon gamma, and interleukin-1 beta have been targeted in research and treatment, because of their multifactorial impact on tumor progression, as well as many secondary events such as fatigue and loss of muscle tissue. Many studies have demonstrated feasibility of implementing a yoga program to improve quality of life and emotional, physical, and mental well-being in patients with cancer. There's also evidence that yoga can attenuate systemic inflammation associated with increased risk of cancer onset and recurrence. There's a growing interest in studying these effects of therapeutic yoga in cancer survivors because it can offer a tailored and individualized approach. And here's where this study comes in. What remains to be understood is the immunologic response to yoga in a heterogeneous sample of cancer survivors and how it presents in an ethnically diverse sample. Then they go on to describe their method, how they selected their participants, ethical approval, and demographics. And then they describe the yoga program. Each session lasted 75 minutes and included structured sequence of combined yoga postures, breathing exercise, and love and kindness meditation, referred to as therapeutic yoga protocol, developed by an expert and certified yoga instructor as previously described. The yoga practice was developed to increase mobility of extremities and torso, increase overall strength and muscular endurance, improve overall function, guide participants in safe transition to the floor and back up, reduce stress, improve focus and concentration, introducing meditation with breath as a focus during the movement practice, and introduce love and kindness meditation during the resting position of the practice. They continue to describe the practice in even more detail and then acknowledge that it happened during the pandemic, so that might have impacted the participants' stress level also. Then they say how they took the blood and how they tested for the cytokines. Statistical analysis and the results part, which is super short. They just say who actually ended up in their study, which I don't know, it doesn't really matter to me who dropped out, but they even made this whole graph about that. It would have been way more interesting to me if the ethnical background or the body mass index could be linked to changes in the cytokines, but they didn't do that, or at least they don't show it. But they say biomarker data is presented in Table 1. Significant decrease in concentrations were found only in interleukin-1 beta and interleukin-1 Ra, and a trend observed in interleukin-8. No significant changes were observed in soluble cytokines receptors. However, SCNFRI was trending towards significance. So here's the table with their results. They list all that they have tested for on the left, and then the median of concentration before and after the yoga practice, the difference, and on the far right the results of their statistical analysis. And when these numbers are very low, like here the highlighted ones, it means that it is very unlikely that these differences are a coincidence. So they tested 12 different cytokines, and 2 of them showed up in different concentrations. I was actually inclined to say only 2, but actually I think it's quite astonishing that after only 2 months, which is really not a long time for a lifestyle change, there were measurable changes in the immune system by a practice that some consider a placebo effect. Moreover, they say in the discussion they were very broad with who they included into their study, different ages with varying amounts of time after their cancer treatment. Then they looked at individual cytokines. They saw no changes to CRP and TNF-alpha, and with that they're basically confirming what other studies have found. However, in that other study, they found changes to these 2 markers after participants did aerobic training and not yoga. Then they compare their results to a study done with Iyengar yoga, which I had to look it up, is yoga with tools. In that study, they didn't find any changes to the cytokine concentrations. So they say maybe that's because they included here a love and kindness meditation, and that might have made the difference. I think it could have also been that the Iyengar yoga with the tools was too strenuous. When the body is under stress, the immune system, of course, doesn't calm down either. Nonetheless, these are contradicting results, and now you have to make up your mind if you think that this is sufficient empiric evidence that yoga benefits the immune system or not. Let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, like and subscribe if you want to see more, and check out my blog Science Shows, where I write about how scientific findings matter to me on a more personal level. The link to that is in the description. Until then, bye!